Hey, Shadi.
Hello,
I'm
Summer. How are you?
good. I'm excited to be at the 2023 Women in Product Conference and joining you, especially to talk about something. It's one of my favorite things to talk about, which is how does product and engineering partner to optimize product building and actually bring better products to market. Um, Before we go there, though, also been told we should probably do a quick intro of ourselves. So jump in, go first, and
Sure.
I'll follow you.
Yes. Very excited to be here. Of course, Summer and I always go and wrestle and we see who wins, but very excited to be chatting with you today. So, a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Iran. I went to undergraduate there, and in 1998, I left Iran, went to Canada to do my PhD. After graduation from graduate school, I was debating whether I should stay in academia or go to industry. I decided I'm an impatient person. I don't have the patience for long research, so I want to go and see the result of my product quickly. So I went to industry. I was, an architect, and then eventually I decided to go to management. I was at a number of company. I always work at startup. A couple of startups failed. One of the startups actually became very successful, became Palo Alto Network. I stayed there for 11 years. And about 4 years ago, I joined Amplitude. And it's been an amazing journey in Amplitude and see the growth happening again in Amplitude. And more importantly, I've been working with Summer at Amplitude. So back to you, Summer.
Cool, thanks. I have been in the digital space for a very, very long time. I built my newspaper's first website in 1994 and launched it. I learned how to code HTML in like an hour to do that, and then just kind of got bit by the web bug, and have spent the last uh, however many years working at everything from early stage startups to bigger companies. I think I've done four ground up startups, but batting 0 for 4 on success there. um, but yeah, and as part of that, have always I've been in media, I've been in ad tech, and kind of all over the place, and always sort of fundamentally a part of that has been data and analytics throughout all the companies that I worked at to some degree, which kind of I think made it natural for me to just end up here at Amplitude, and combining two things that I love: data and product building. Um, but yeah, actually, I have to say, like, so I joined Amplitude. It's been 8 months now, but I remember going through the interview cycle and meeting you for the first time, and I was such a fangirl. I was like, I just have to say before we like get into this that I am. It's so exciting to like be um, talking with like a woman executive leader in tech. It's such a rarity. So it's even cooler that we get to do this. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Yes, actually, I really enjoyed our interview too, and I always say that it's our job to basically encourage and bring more women to tech, and and I always say that. Just another thing about myself. I have two daughters who are studying computer science, so I'm contributing two more girls to the computer science field.
excellent. At some point, we'll be able to start up a company that's just all women, right? And have everything covered. Um, all right, so let's get down to the topic. We've talked about this on a number of occasions, and I think we've identified some commonalities that make this partnership work. But maybe let's kick off the conversation talking about culture, right? And what is that what are the right ingredients do you think that's needed to have a culture that really supports and empowers this partnership?
Yeah, I think it's so important. One of the reasons that I joined Amplitude is I really felt like that what I value and the Amplitude culture is very aligned. And one of the main things that can make the partnership between product engineering work is that culture. I always use this example. For me, ownership is very big deal. I think it's important people feel like that they're owner. I always use example. I go to engineer and say, "Why did you build this ugly product?" And if they tell me, oh, because the product manager told me so, or because the designer told me so, I say wrong answer. But if they tell me, I thought it's going to be pretty, but it turned out to be ugly, that's okay. We all can learn and we all make mistakes. So that is goes to the essence of owning it, owning that product experience, owning what you're building it. And it's so important. Another important value at Amplitude is our growth mindset, is that we are working as a team. We are all learning from each other. You might not know the detail of a distributed system that I know, but you know a lot about, you know, pricing and packaging, and how to think about end-to-end product life cycle. So we learn from each other, and I think that's so important. And we are co-owner of what we are building together. And another perspective that I really like at Amplitude, we call it humility, is the fact that we believe everybody is bringing something unique to the table, and we are willing to hear each other's perspective and build upon that. That's why I think that we get to a point that if you basically, the brain of the group is bigger than the sum of the brain of the people in the group. So because people are building upon each other and people are open and hearing each other perspective. So I think that is so critical for everything, but I think so critical to make sure that this partnership between product and engineering work well. So you have to have the right mindset to start with, and right base basically.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it was one of the things that kind of like um, was one of the reasons I think I came to Amplitude was that the guiding principles, right? That the humility piece. At my previous company, we didn't have that as a guiding principle. Within my org, I would tell people, check your ego at the door, right? That was like our version of it, a little bit more strongly worded than than humility. But yeah, I really love that about the culture here because principles matter, right? They set the boundaries of the team. It's like an operating agreement between team members on how you're going to work together, right? And uh, culture is having those boundaries is an enabler of trust, right? It kind of flattens the playing field or evens the playing field a little bit, so everybody knows what to expect from each other, and then gives you that baseline ability to start to build that trust, which is the beginning of the partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there is a say that they say culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? Or for lunch. It's very important that we have that right agreement, right level of trust to be able to work. And then we can pick the right strategy, or we can pick the wrong one, and we can go and improve it, and we can iterate. But having the base foundation, and we are trusting each other and working together, is so critical for this relationship to work.
Yeah. Let's go back to the ownership thing a bit because I want to kind of double tap into that. So we both have experience at ground up startups, right? Where no matter what role you play, you don't have the convenience to just play a single role. Like, let's talk a little bit about how like that startup culture where there's like so few people, and uh, how that kind of contributes to the culture, right, and the principles of ownership.
Yeah, it's so important. As you said, when you're a tiny startup, you don't have the luxury, right? You don't have a luxury that I have you know, you have to do whatever it takes, whether it means that you go get the coffee, or whether it means you manage everything yourself. You talk with customers, you basically develop the product, you are the designer, you do everything to make it happen, and we're all working. So I think that's the essential, is that, and actually you have a little bit of a uh, survival drive there, that if I don't do the job, we are not going to succeed as a company. So I'm going to do everything that it's not that I can blame somebody. It doesn't matter whose fault it is, whether we're going to be successful or not. I think that's the essence of it, the growth mindset that is, sorry, the ownership mindset, that is very, very important. And I think that's so important, that when you go and the company gets bigger, you maintain that. I always use a phrase that many years ago, I went to my VP and I told him that, I don't know whether I should do A or B. I have a question. And he said, if it was your own money, your own company, what decision you would have made? And I said, okay, I would do A. He said, then you know the answer. You don't need to necessarily come to me, because you go with that guiding principles of the ownership. And I changed it a little bit, and I tell people that I'm not hiring employees, I'm hiring founders. So put your founder hat on and tell me what is the right decision to be made here. And put the founder hat on. And if you don't have enough designer, okay, you're gonna go do the work yourself. If you don't have enough PM, you're gonna do the work or get help. So it's very important to be in that mindset. And then, with that mentality, you can work with whatever we have and then make the best out of the existing situation that we might be in it.
Yep. Yep, for sure. And engineering has the added principle, right? Which I love this, which is company, team, me, right? That's the priority order. Like what is going to benefit the company? It drives that team mentality. So cool. Speaking of team, team is kind of like the sort of the next logical step, right? And we um, as the title of our talk might imply, a two-legged stool we don't have. We have a three-legged stool, and I am all about empowered teams. It's funny, like things that I've kind of learned through experience, or thinking I've developed through experience over the years. Marty Kagan wrote a fantastic book about, and it's something that I've always uh, kind of evangelized to my teams. And I think that we have that here. How does the triad operate at Amplitude? And let's talk about the benefits a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. I think, yeah, it's not just the PM and engineer. We believe in the triad: PM, design, engineer. There are co-owners of what they're building. They're at the same level. Nobody is anybody's boss. They're all working. They all have the high sense of ownership to deliver the best product experience for our customer. They're all kind of serving the customer. It's not that somebody's anybody's boss. They're really in that mindset, and everybody brings a different perspective. The engineer might be thinking about the scalability of the solution, and the cost of the solution, and designer might be thinking about usability. The product might be thinking about end to end, but all of them should be thinking about all of these problems and all of these challenges, so that they have different expertise and areas, but they're all co-owning that. So if you want to create a visualization, it's just a triangle that you have all of these three basically working together and making it successful. And at the same time, there are specialization. Each of them are specialized in one thing. So maybe product management role is more cross-functional. They have to work more with other parts of the organization. Engineers might be more thinking about the non-functional requirement of the product that they're building, scalability, operability, and so on and so forth. So they have their own specialty, but they co-own it together to make sure that they're building the best product for the customer.
Yeah, I like the triangle visualization. I use a Venn diagram as well. So three overlapping circles in a triangle, and in the center of that is the customer, right? You hear people talk about being customer centric or customer focused or whatever, and really it's the overlapping accountability, right? That all three of these groups have. Product manager is if all three groups are accountable for the customer, right, and solving customer problems in a way that brings value to the customer, the added area for a product manager is their accountability and responsibility for the business. Is the problem that I'm solving going to bring value to the business? Is it viable? Um, Design, accountable to the customer and the user of the product, with the experience. Um, uh, in engineering, a lot of people think about engineering as they figure out the how, right? It's just that simple. They figure out like, how's this going to work? But really, it's more than that, right? They have to think about the technology. Am I, leveraging unique technology, some structural advantage that we have as a company to create a differentiated offering in market, right? Am I going to um, innovate something, right? That gives us an advantage in market, and that's kind of an added responsibility that people don't think about often when we talk about engineering. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one, sorry to interrupt you, but one thing that it happens is that uh, when they're working together, engineers might be coming, oh, there's another way to solve this problem, or there's another way to look at it. And that's where innovation happens, when they're in the details of what problem we are solving, how are we solving it. And I think that's where innovation really happened, that knowing about the detail of technology. One other thing, actually, this is an example of one of my previous company. There was a point of time that we were doing a migration from one system to another. So I was talking with one of my leaders, and I asked him how are things, and he said, "Yeah, we're gonna have, I don't know, 20 hours of downtime or whatever, and I've checked with the product and they're okay." And I said, "But do you think customers are going to be okay with 20 hours of that time? You are the customer advocate too. It's not just the product that is a customer advocate. Think about yourself." And then he thought, "Yeah, yeah, you're right. This is too much. We need to go back to the drawing board and figure out if there is another way that we can do to not impact the customer." So that's where that innovation comes in. I understand the use case, I understand the customer, and I know this solution might not be the right solution. I can go back to drawing board and figure out another way that we can solve it.
Excellent. Um, all right, so we've got the culture, so we've got like the right atmosphere. We've got the team, so we've got the right balance of accountability to customer and responsibility of uh, areas and overall ownership. Now, the thing that the 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 next kind of logical area is okay, that's cool. You've got the things. Now, how do you actually execute this? Um, so coming into like ways of working together, operating together, like what are the rituals, right? That make this kind of approach and this kind of partnership work well.
Yeah, I think this is very important. And it goes back to the accountability that you mentioned earlier. One of the important rituals or things is, how are we setting goals for these people, right? So, do the product people and the design people have different goals than the engineers, or vice versa? Because if they have different goals, they're optimized for different things. So, if the engineer only thinks about, my job is done when I ship my product, so I'm only going to optimize to make sure I predictably ship this feature and that's it, and I don't care about what happens after that, then then when you ship the product and it doesn't move the needle for the business, or it doesn't achieve the outcome, then it becomes product's fault, or product came up with the wrong thing. And in the example that you mentioned earlier, that some people think of that the product thinks about the why and what, and engineer thinks about the how. That's the problem. If engineer only thinks about the how, that's the issue. So the way we do it at Amplitude, that is very important for me, is that we set the same goal for product design, and the triad, product design and engineering. Your goal is to to achieve this outcome for us, move these metrics, achieve the outcome. And of course, to achieve the outcome, you have to ship a product, so you have to build the product. Many times when you ship and build the product, it's going to move that goal. That's awesome. Sometimes it doesn't move the goal, because we didn't see something. You go back to the drawing board and figure out if there's another way, another iteration that you need to do to make that. So I think that is so important. And our Amplitude, as you know, we set this goal quarterly. The teams go do the analysis together. They come up with goals for themselves, and every week we are following them, saying, how are we moving on these metrics? And I think that is so important. And when we are reviewing the metrics together, it's not always that the product person talks about the metrics. They take turns. One week the product person talk about how the metrics move, one week the engineer does, and one week the designer. So that basically creates that sense of, we are all owning and having the same goal, so that we are marching toward the same goal and drumbeat together. So I think that is very, very important. The other thing that is important, that we do at Amplitude. Of course, product is the one that talks more with customer. That's expected, and that's the thing. But we actually encourage engineers to get on customer calls. So it shouldn't be just the product that goes to customer and just basically give them compiled data. It's very valuable for engineers to also get the raw data from customer. That's why we encourage engineers to get on a customer call and see exactly how is it being used, so that then that creates both better alignment between product and engineer, because they have both talked to the customer, they have that perspective, and also it gives a satisfaction. I'm solving some real person problem, and it's not Summer came up with a dream and now I'm implementing that. This is really solving exact cases.
Yeah. No, I think that's actually interesting. Something I've actually like noticed at multiple companies is when teams working together, when you have your product manager, engineers, and designers all listening to the customer, um, everyone naturally has their own bias, right? So for product, it's I've got this hypothesis. I'm pretty sure it's right. So I'm going to listen for the information that like validates that particular hypothesis. But you've got your designers who are looking at it from a different perspective and engineering from another perspective who are probably going to hear something different, right? And that coming together is like a really nice check and balance on did we actually hear what the customer was asking for? So um, also, something I had a really nice positive reaction to is the use of the word outcomes, right? And outcomes over output. Another great book that literally every product manager on the planet should read. Um, is outcomes are about customer behavior, right? So if you make your outcome, your metric about you, um, it's not an outcome, it's output, right? It's just measuring output. And if you make the thing that you're measuring, the needle that you're trying to move about your customer, then that allows the whole team to be, again, it reiterates that customer centric kind of or customer focused viewpoint, which I love. Which is this is what our North Stars at Amplitude are about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have some output, but I think it's important that the job doesn't end after you have the output, right? Then you have to make sure that you're actually your output, your what you shift, what you change is actually benefiting the customer the way you have in your hypothesis you assume it's gonna be, and then you validate that, and you see, and hopefully most of the time you were correct and it actually moved the needle. But there are more times we both know that it doesn't, so you go back and say, okay, what did we miss, what was the misunderstanding, even though we were all in it from the beginning, but we missed the perspective and now we have to go solve the problem a different way, and you go back and iterate. I think one thing that I really like at Amplitude is also the culture of iteration. We are all in it together, we're going and iterating and learning together and going back to our next phase, that I think is very important. That we do it, and knowing about uh, the product that you're building or the feature that you're building, which level is it? Is it an MVP level? So it's about mainly learning. So you want to put something, a minimum viable product and minimum viable feature so you can do learning, or is it more advanced? So you want to make sure that you're scaling it and you're solving a number of, I call it non-functional requirement, usability, scalability. So knowing about that and be intentional as what we're doing, again, goes back to the trust that the product engineering and design have with each other, and then they agree that this is where the stage of the product or feature is, and this is what we are optimizing for, and this is how we're going to make the products go to the next stage of it.
Yep. Yep. So I think a lot of people will be thinking, okay, I have principles. My company has guiding principles. We've done the work to like establish this culture. We've got the teams, we've got the triad, we have these rituals. Let's talk a little bit about what are some signs that things are working well, that things are running correctly, and then on the flip side of that, let's talk about some signs where maybe it's symptoms of things aren't working as intended.
Yeah, and think about, you know going back to the culture and the principles. when I see somebody comes to me and feel like they don't think they're in the driver's seat, they don't feel like that they're in charge, that's a sign of that the ownership is not working there. Either I'm doing something wrong or they're doing something. If people feel like that they're a victim of a situation, bad things are happening to them. Either the product people are telling them things are not working, or the boss is not giving them the right vision, or any other thing. That these are the signs that takes away that empowerment, that sense of ownership from the team. So I think it's so important that, and I'm actually very sensitive to that. When this victim, when somebody is showing me victim mentality, I really go to the bottom of that, see what's happening, because I think that's so, so disempowering. If you don't feel like you're in charge, you're making that decision, you're having this. So I think that's one thing. And then the opposite, when you see people are coming up, we say, oh, we tried this and we failed fast, that's great, but we're learning from that. I think that is very important, and again, we are all in it together, we have equal ownership, and we missed it something or we learned something together. These are the signs you see things are working well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, it's it's I don't want to call it excuse making because it's not really excuses. It's just when when people are like, well, I haven't we haven't built out the designs yet because I'm waiting on product to finish writing the requirements, or we haven't started coding yet because we're waiting on designs, right? It's that's a sign that the team is not working together, right? Throughout the development of everything. um, because there's so many ways to, like, I mean, you could sit down at a table together and on a piece of paper draw a wireframe, and you could start kind of like developing from that. So there's lots of ways to move forward quickly. So um, what else should we talk about? I think the kind of like for me the key takeaways of all of this, um, just to kind of like recap a little bit, is important thing in terms of building partnership, and establishing trust, which is the key to the foundation of any good partnership, is about that humility piece, right? The check your ego at the door. Um, the second piece is the team structure and the balance of power. Um, to your point, ownership. And the last one is the one that you brought up, which is like, it's not outputs, it's the teams measuring outcomes, and holding themselves accountable to that needle moving. Um, anything that you would kind of add to that, or
No, I think you summarized it very well. So, that's why I like my product partner. They can summarize and come to the gist of it. That's awesome.
yeah, 3 slides, 3 bullets per slide. That's the rule. So yeah,
That's awesome.
great. Well, I think that's it. I think we just solved the world's problems when it comes to how to build better products, through good solid teamwork between product and engineering, so and design. So
Absolutely. And let's go build those great products together.
right,
I know that they will do great job. Yeah, working
yeah,
well together.
cool. All right, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.